Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bestseller Live. I'm your host, Cynthia Johnson, and today I'm here with Sarah Benton, and she is author of Parents in Recovery, Navigating a Sober Family Lifestyle. Sarah is a licensed mental health counselor and advanced alcohol and drug counselor. She is chief clinical officer and co-founder of Waterview Behavioral Health in Wallingford, Connecticut, and co-owner of Benton Behavioral Health Consulting, LLC. She has led and consulted across many levels of addiction and mental health treatment, and is author of Understanding the High Functioning Alcoholic, and of course, why we're here today. She also wrote Parents in Recovery, Navigating a Sober Family Lifestyle. She's been featured in the New York Times and the Oprah Show, Today, CBS, NPR, and she also writes for Psychology Today. I am thrilled for her to be here and to jump right in. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. I've actually spent quite a bit of my career in working in behavioral health, and this topic is sort of a gap. It's like the most important thing and the one of the least talked about. So, what?
It's true. You see so many of them. It's just not really like dealt with as a population.
Yeah, and I'm curious when you realized it was time for a book like this to exist.
It honestly, after my first book, it was one of those kind of a birthing experience of, I don't know if I can do this again. But because I felt really inspired, and I think to write a book, at least for me, I need to feel truly inspired and that it's something unique and not out there, right? So there's a lot of self-help books and a lot of recovery books and all of that. And so I was actually perusing a bookstore in the memoir section, because that's usually my favorite. And I saw this book called Mother Noise by Cindy House. And it just caught my eye. And I started reading the front cover. And she was talking about the experience of having like an 11-year-old tween. And when do you tell them the telling of that, why you're sober, not just that like you don't drink and don't use substances, but like the why behind it. And do your kids really know you if they don't really know like your past in some ways? And she was just wrestling with this, and it really resonated with me. My daughter was around that age. And so it got me thinking, right? Like, oh, that's interesting. And that's unique to Parents in Recovery. Are there other books out there, nonfiction, not just memoir, but are there nonfiction books out there for parents that are in recovery and for all of the layers that come with that? And I realized there weren't. There was like one that stood out to me. It was very focused on mothers and 12 steps. So it was just not quite, I was looking for mothers, fathers, and just like really general recovery, not specific to a particular modality. So yeah, it was one of those, oh boy, it's missing. And I think I feel a calling, but I knew what that entailed.
Um, so did you write the book as you went through the process of, I guess, telling your daughter on your own, or did she already know?
She didn't at that time. Like when I started writing the book, like once I had the contract, I decided that it was important for my husband's in recovery as well, like for us to tell her why also I was writing this book. And she was at that age where I felt like she got the concept of addiction. She, I think with like technology and phones, we talk so much about it. We use the term loosely. I felt like she was starting to grasp that concept. And so I developmentally felt she was ready to understand a little bit more about the why behind it. And I had this book that I was writing, and it felt really insincere to have it like completely hidden. So I did tell her, and she was actually shocked, which I was surprised about because I work in addiction treatment, and we're always talking about people that are sober and our friends and people, clients that are like treatment programs. I just figured she kind of like put the pieces together, but she had not.
Wow. It's so interesting too, because like the different versions of you throughout life, she knows one version of you.
Yeah.
And there's so many. I remember working with sober people, and there were some we would joke and say, I think he took too many Tylenol and got sober. But because there's like these different people now, right? And your new version. So
It's hard for your kids to see,
yeah.
like, they do put you on a pedestal up until a certain age. And then I think to hear that you struggled with something in your life sometimes it's hard for them to wrestle with that, right? Like, to see you in that vein.
And you were really focused, you said moms in like in AA group, or like were you writing this as you, or who are you picturing as you were writing the book?
I was really picturing anybody that was in any form of self-help and had been through some form of a recovery process. I think there's, especially post-pandemic, so many different options. Of course, the 12 steps are amazing, but there's so many others, and I wanted to honor those and also speak to fathers as well. I think that sometimes they get the short end and don't always, get the literature targeted for them. And for me, the conversations I've had in recovery have been equally as powerful with mothers as they have been with fathers. And I wanted to represent their voices as well. So I interviewed mothers and fathers all over the country, and it totaled about 400 years of recovery, like if you added it all up. And I also included my own journal entries. So I hadn't planned on using them. Like when I was writing my journal, I didn't know I was going to be writing this book, but then I was like, I hope I have enough, because I was sort of brain dead for some of the parenting. But I had enough that it did make some logical sense at the end of each chapter.
Oh, that's great. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about like a sober family life?
I think that there are misconceptions around sort of their view of substances, like that we're judging other people for their drinking or their substance use, when actually we have a lot more compassion and understanding of the way other people live their lives. So I think there's a difference between people that are, for religious reasons or for, other health reasons, other reasons, like never drank, versus people that are in recovery who overdid it. And so I think some of the misconceptions is that we can't be out in public around other people that are drinking. I know that parents have expressed to me they're just not discomfort, but that they feel guilty drinking in front of me. If I choose to be at that event, that's my choice, and I know, what I'm putting myself with. Like I don't expect that other people need to rotate their life around my recovery. So that's one point in it. I also think that there's a lot of moral judgment around addiction, and so there can be misunderstandings about who people are in recovery versus what an addiction, how it changed some of their behaviors and things they did in the past, and that they've restructured and changed their lives. So there's automatic assumptions that are made about people, I think, and some of which are true. I mean, I certainly have my share of crazy stories and things that went on, and part of why I'm sober. But the most amazing and creative and successful people I know are those that have channeled their addiction into like their recovery. So I guess those are some of the misconceptions I've encountered.
Yeah, and you also work in the space, right? Like
Yeah.
So I would assume, I mean, please tell me if I'm wrong, you're like the first call sometimes if somebody needs something, right?
Yeah, and I made that choice years ago when I wrote my first book to be public about my recovery. I had several years of recovery before that point. I don't always recommend it to people that are like newly sober, because it is a little overwhelming to out yourself in that way, and it can put pressure on you. But one of the reasons why I feel grateful I did is that I've had people from my past, family, friends, that have reached out for support, because I put myself out there, and I never would have had that opportunity if I had kept it to myself. So there is, there's an amount of anonymity that goes on with people who are in recovery, depending on what program you're in and all of that. And I get it. I totally get it. But I also think there's a point where we should also have a little bit of pride for the fact that we're sober, and, letting other people know that there's success stories. And like, there's 23 million Americans that are in recovery, and yet I think that there's a lot of bad press out there around addiction. So, why not let people know that you're in recovery?
Yeah, and I'm assuming your daughter probably has friends too. So like your books are out there. She still doesn't
Right.
know you like own this, mental health, behavioral health care company.
I'm surprised she hadn't Googled a little bit more about me. I don't know what went on.
I feel like that is just I don't think I've Googled my mom actually now that you mention it 3 times, 4
Well,
times.
yeah, I mean, if she had looked a little further, I think she would have seen, I've written art, like there's articles and there's like, because I'm public, not just professionally about it, but I speak personally. So you would see both of that on the internet. It's interesting, but
So how did the conversation go? Are you open to discussing that or just so
yeah.
curious?
I mean, I asked her first if she knew, because I felt like there was some part of her that knew, but just sort of kept it to herself. And she was like, because it's not healthy. That's why you don't drink. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that is true. Let's be honest. um, but, um, but the reason is more because I had a problem with it. And she was just like, wait, what do you mean? And like, she really couldn't, like, she was a bit shocked, to be honest. And I think because she had pictured it more that we were always this way. And so to hear that it was actually the opposite and now it's like this was hard for her to grasp, I think. But one of the things I've noticed since that conversation is she's very protective over my husband and my recovery. Somehow she understands the consequences of relapse. She is, I mean, she has said seriously, like, if either of you relapse, I'm moving out or you're moving out. Like she like takes it very seriously. I mean, she's 14 now, but I thought that I'm amazed that she grasps the severity of addiction because, again, she hasn't been really exposed to that much substance use because most of the people that we don't have alcohol in our home. And like if we have social events here and parties, we don't serve alcohol. So she hasn't really, unless she goes to other people's houses, she's not very much exposed to drinking culture.
That's interesting. And do you like organize your life around it? Like how does that, what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, I purposely put the subtitle as the navigating a sober family lifestyle. Like I was like, I have to put this word in somehow. It has to fit because I know in the beginning, it's a lot of people will be like, oh, just stop drinking and like do everything the same. And I wish that it were that simple. But what I've noticed, because I'm a couple of decades sober at this point, in the beginning, yeah, there is a lot of like remove it from your life, but then you start to realize that just like addiction feeds in to every aspect of your decision making, of your relationships, of choices you make, you realize that once you pull the substance from your life, so does recovery, right? So your recovery, and if you even talk to like recovery coaches and alcohol and drug counselors, they'll say like the discussions are not just about the substance, it's about the shifts and changes that you're going to make in your life in different areas, like your stress level, your work, your academics, your self-care, your exercise, your spiritual pursuits, your relationships, like your partner. So all of these different pieces are affected by your recovery just as they are from your substance use. And as you change and shift little pieces, before you realize it, your entire life has changed. If you maintain, long-term recovery, you start to realize how different things are than they were before. It doesn't happen overnight. And so, yeah, I would say that my daughter's been raised in a house where our lifestyle is that a sober lifestyle. And so she's been exposed to conversations about not overscheduling, about managing stress, about, taking care of mental health issues, about like getting ahead of things, about teaching coping and dealing with mental health issues before there's a real issue. So I think we're pretty open, but also just the fact that we don't have substances like in our house and things like that, that we bond with our friends differently. Our connections are different with people, that's not the way that we connect with people. Cause I know I'm not blind to our society. I think that there's a lot of bonding and parent bonding and sports events and things that rotate around it. But that's just not how we operate.
Yeah, no, I mean, the like, do you have to, because there's clearly your daughter didn't know, so you're in the real world, it sounds like. It's not like you're in this like sub
Bubble.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you're saying other parents feel guilty about it, but how did you maintain this level of like casualness that to the point where your daughter didn't even notice? But yeah, your life is is built around it. It's amazing.
I really don't understand how, I think that, there are parents that were interviewed in the book who got sober after becoming parents. And so maybe those pieces are more obvious. I know, some people their kids were older after they got sober. So they saw the before and after, but I got sober 7 years before I had my daughter, my husband about the same. So, we already were living this way. And so integrating having a child, it wasn't some new thing for us. And I think that can be part of it, right? Is that I certainly struggled. Part of why I wrote the book was adding the layer of having a child on top of being in recovery from anything. I think adds a layer of having to put some of your self stuff aside or change your schedule, your time, your downtime, just everything changes when you have a child. And I thought that was something I saw in common with recovery, is that everything changes. And when you're a parent, everything changes. And so when you combine those two pieces, it's it's like seismic, the change in your life, from both of those occurrences. So together, I thought that was something that maybe people could benefit from seeing, like, how do you navigate both of these together?
Yeah. Again, like I had worked in this behavioral health space for a long time, and in mental health, in certain mental health areas, I've seen family involved, or like, if there's like eating disorders, but it's not the main. It's not super common to integrate family necessarily, parenting into like addiction treatment all the time. You do though, right?
Yeah. So, you know what? I think it also depends on, well, with adolescent treatment, like,
Well, yeah.
18 and under, right?
Yeah.
You're including the children, basically. You're trying to include the parents in the children's treatment. That is adolescent model. Ideally, and I'd say for any type of addictive behavior, even mental health, like, you should be including some form of the family system, because I also think that what can happen with substance use disorders is there's the identified patient, right? And everybody's like, well, if they would just get their act together, we'd all be fine. But then people don't also, spouses, loved ones, children, like, people don't really see how they play into the dynamic. Extended family, there's family systems are very interesting. They're like organisms, and when one piece of that organism like shifts, everything else has to shift a little bit too. So expecting somebody's going to isolated, like, go get help, come back, and have everything else be the same is unrealistic. So it's really important that families get both education, support. Not everybody's partner, spouse, loved ones get sober either, and some of them don't have problems, right? So then it's like navigating even a normal social drinker, or somebody that has other issues that they're choosing to or choosing not to address. So ideally the family should be involved. I'd say, there's no perfect outcomes on addiction treatment, but I can tell you the prognosis is much higher if family's involved.
Yeah, because I mean, most likely they're not the only heavy drinker in the family, right?
It's highly genetic, so odds are there's other people, there's more where that came from. It's 50%, genetics account for 50% the chances of having, particularly an alcohol use disorder. So it's quite it's startling how the genetics of it. I mean, if you hear people speaking in group therapy or self-help meetings, you'll often hear, this particular family member, I come from an alcoholic home. Like, it's just so common. It's cultural too, right? So, I mean, yes, there's genetics, but there's also certain cultures within our country and other countries where drinking is part of the culture. So there's nurture, there's the genetic component plus there's the environment.
Yeah. And like, who should pick up this book? Like, at what stage? Where are they? Are they thinking about having a family? Do they have a family? Like, who is this book really helping?
Well, I found that there's, a sober, quote unquote, sober curious movement that's been interesting for me to kind of see. And what I wanted to do was compile wisdom for people. So sort of short circuit the process. I don't think it ever hurts to take a peek at, what things could be or suggestions for how to support people. Like, say you're deciding to take a break, like for a period of time, there's insights and suggestions for people that could help in any way, also with parenting and with stressors, because getting sober isn't just about putting the drink down. It's also about managing your life in a balanced way, right? So I think we all could benefit from that component. I do know that family members can benefit because they can understand the experience better and therefore have, more compassion, understanding, boundary setting, whatever it may be. It's good to be informed about, just like if somebody has a particular medical condition. I think, like, we often separate these things out so much, but it's good to be informed, right? So yeah, I think there's different, like you said, different stages in which this book can be applicable. Like, you're fully in treatment, you're considering it, you're a loved one. Hopefully it's relatable for all of those different individuals.
Yeah, I mean, just there's a lifestyle component. The sober curious is great. I think that's actually the biggest crowd for this, because most people, or young people who are sober curious, did not grow up in sober houses, right? So they wouldn't be curious about it. So it's like, you're also shifting the way you grew up in many ways, right? You need sort of a blueprint or a support.
Yeah.
And traditional, like, get sober books are going to probably feel disconnected. Yeah.
I mean, I distinctly state in the introduction, like, this is not a book on how to get sober, nor is it a book on how to parent, because I would have never agreed to write a parenting book. I just don't think that's, like, my specialty. So really, it's like a field guide in a sense, right? It's wisdom, accumulated wisdom, it's research, it's personal experience, and it's the voices of other parents that are reflected. It's not, to your point, it's not like how to, it's like, if you're going to be making this choice, like, here's some things to consider, right? That maybe you haven't considered.
Yeah. I really think that's, because families, so there's layers, there's emotions, there's unspoken truths and relationships, and it is difficult to navigate. But if you're not someone who's trying to get sober, you're not going to feel good picking up a get sober book. You know what I mean?
No, but it's actually hard for people to, like, purchase books in person. Like, I think online, like, a lot of people purchase books about things that are a little shameful. Like, they'll order them, they won't actually go to a bookstore.
Yeah. I mean, and that's actually part of the book, right? Is the shame and navigating it.
The irony of it, right? Yeah. The book's about recovery. Don't be embarrassed.
Yeah. I have two more questions. I know we're, like, coming up on time, but the first question is, are you navigating also, like, if the child that at some point is, like, now is going through the same thing that you were going through, is that addressed at all in the book, or would you address it in a future book if not?
Like, generational addiction. It's addressed in the sense that, well, there are people that are talking about how their family of origin may have had addictive issues, and so they're trying to break that cycle, right, to that point. And then also around raising, in particular, tweens and teens, when we get to that chapter around, like, different age groups, like, that topic comes up naturally, because typically the age that people are exposed socially, unless it's, like, at your home, like in your family, is in the tween teen years. So I definitely address and talk about, and it asked interview questions specifically about, like, how did you address this with, your children, or your child? And I got so many varying responses that I couldn't really summarize it, because there were just different versions of like what felt right to different people, as far as disclosure, as far as like, parenting styles that they felt were appropriate to open the dialogue. I mean, I think the main messaging is that like those parents in recovery are probably more afraid than the general public about their child or children developing a substance use disorder. That is clear. And also they want to open up the dialogue with them, and so that they're not going underground and they're not necessarily hiding it. So, creating an environment that's conducive to that, and feeling that it's not just a punitive model.
Do you know if there's research around if people grow up in sober homes, if they're less likely?
That's a good question, actually. What's funny is I knew somebody like that I got sober with, and she had come from a long line of people in recovery, but she knew kind of her destiny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she still went out and went drinking. And then I think she ended up getting help sooner, but literally she came from like a lineage of people that were in recovery. So that was interesting to me, but that's a great question. And I was speaking with a physician who's saying recovery can be genetic. So I don't know the stats, but I'd love to find that out. And I think that whatever it is that you instill in your family system, as far as like the norm, can be a helpful influence to go back to. So it doesn't mean necessarily that your kids are never going to go out and try things. And I think that's an unrealistic expectation. I'm not trying to impose that on my daughter, although she doesn't seem too keen on drinking at this moment. But I'm an addiction therapist. I'm skeptical. I'm like, okay, yeah, I hear that all the time. I hear that way. But yeah, I think that there's also, like, to the point of my friend that grew up in those generations of recovery, she had a very quick rebound. Like, I think she was probably drinking fewer years because she knew what to do.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it too, is that like you have people you can go to talk to about it, and that there's a solution.
That's great. No, and we're time, but I'd love to hear also about your treatment like facility. So like, how many people do you treat? Like
Sure.
health? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've worked at different levels of care, and after my first book, I started specializing in addiction treatment. But my husband and another business partner and I started a mental health intensive outpatient program in Connecticut, and we do treat clients that have substance use disorders as well, but we focus a lot on the mental health component, which has actually been really refreshing. I think it's refreshing for people too that have been in higher levels of care and just all they hear about is relapse, and they're learning new material about the mental health component, because for the most part people have some form of underlying mental health conditions. So it's been really exciting to be in an ownership position where I've seen a lot of treatment not run the way I would want it to be run. And so I don't have that issue when I'm able to run it the way I want to run it. And, quality of care, and also affordability, being in network with insurances, and also feeling really honored because we opened a Mission Reset, which is a program that is for first responders, veterans, and active military. Mm-hmm. So that's really exciting to us to have that. That is actually available virtually throughout the entire state of Connecticut. So that's been really exciting to be able to just do things that are missing. Again, back to like finding those gaps. Like, there's a lot more substance use disorder treatment actually than you'd think than mental health. But that doesn't mean that we're not addressing the substance use disorder as well.
Yeah, that was actually one of the programs that I was involved in, was the first responders, and it was fascinating.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was like,
I've learned so much. Yeah, it's been a great honor just to have them entrust us, and I feel like they do so great with each other more than in the general population group. So that's been really the bonding and the just their trust and safety has been really cool to see.
I mean, that's like a family in itself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Literally, it is.
No, that's wonderful. It's so great to have you on here. I will be getting the book. I'm so thrilled. I have little kids too, so I'm so curious.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really awesome to hear that you're doing this and these different populations and the way you go about it. So thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. And you have a website we could.
I do. I do. So Benton, B as in boy, HC.com is my website, and there's resources on there. Also, my Psychology Today blog that I write is called The High Functioning Alcoholic, and I did a Parents in Recovery series, and I have a Parents in Recovery Facebook page. I'd eventually love to have Parents in Recovery groups, so that's a goal down the line, but I'm trying not to overdo it. I'm trying to practice what I preach.
Amazing. Thank you again so much. And for everyone watching, this is Bestseller Live. We will be back next week with another episode. We will see you then.